What's going on, folks? This is the OCD podcast, Off Color Discussions. This episode is a great conversation that Billy and I had with Carl Soderberg, co-founder of Able Ebenezer in Merrimack, New Hampshire. I can't wait to do it again. He is an unbelievably smart person when it comes to beer. I learned so much stuff in this one episode. It was fascinating. Like I said, I can't wait to do it again. Get the rest of the crew down here. Mike, Jim, Heather, Jake, especially Jake. I mean, he created Kilgore, and that's my favorite beer there. So, with that, you can find us now on offcolordiscussions.blueberry.net. You can subscribe to a podcast. You can check out our YouTube. You can do it all. That's it. So, let's get into it. OCD. Off-color discussions. Let's get crazy in this bitch. Yeah, I like MMA and comic books. What up? It's going to get a little off-colored.
I like burritos, so what?
I mean, who doesn't?
I'm just letting everybody know we're sitting with Carl Soderberg, co-founder of Able Ebenezer in Merrimack, New Hampshire. If you haven't been down there, you should go down there. The place is awesome, and their beer is delicious.
Very delicious.
So,
all right.
I'll have to give you a little bit of history. I am not a beer drinker. I've never been a beer drinker. And when I was younger, I drank Bud Light, and then I went to hard liquor. I stayed for hard liquor for a long time. Even now, I love hard liquor. But on a normal day for a barbecue, I'll drink Budweiser. And there was a day after gym where we went over to Able, and I had a Kilgore, and that beer changed my taste buds on beer. And since then, burned the shit. I'm pretty much all yours I've had, but now I'm into Henniker, Great Woods, or I think it's Great North Woods out of Manchester. Experimenting I am.
We tried the Lord Hobo, which was pretty good.
That was very good.
That is, if you don't know, we try to do a new beer every week at the end of every show. So
sweet.
We're definitely, the first one was a little rough, but the rest of them have been pretty decent.
That one wasn't a beer. It was Henniker's.
Tasted like a mead.
Queen Pollyanna, a red ale, a sour red ale, and that was done in a wine casket. So it just tasted like wine. It was gross. It was not good.
Yeah, it was not good.
Outside of my skill set.
I personally am a beer drinker. I love trying new beers. Any kind of new beer. Never really to excess. I like just to try new things. So my first experience with Able was at Tuckaway Tavern. That was the first time I had it. And it was a burn the ships. That's kind of what got me into a real IPA kind of mode, especially the last couple months. But yeah, I love trying new things.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a really good, especially what's happening right now in the market. There's a lot of people out there who claim to not be beer drinkers. They don't like beer. But I think what's happening is with the amount of breweries that are popping up and the amount of new different styles that are coming up, I think we're really just scratching the surface of what a beer can be. So when you say you like a beer like Kilgore, which is a coffee porter, it uses locally roasted coffee. You probably like coffee. It just comes down to, in the recipe design, finding that balance and getting a flavor that you really like and then giving it to the market and letting people find out about it. I think the thing about craft beer, for the last couple decades, has been a very intimidating proposition because everything's been American light lagers. And a lot of craft beers have been very bold, over the top. It's almost been like a competition amongst craft brewers of how much flavor, how much robust, angry flavor can we get into a beer. And anytime someone who's not really into craft beers, someone tells them this beer is awesome, you should buy it, they spend $8 on a pint, and then they take that first sip, and their first thought is, I just wasted $8. So I think finding that first beer is what really opens up the world of beer to people. I think that's no different than anything else. It's it's not that you just have to find a good starting point and then developing your palate. I used to hate IPAs because all they used to be was just a bitter beer, and like Victory, that was our ode to what an IPA should be, where it's a beer that's not overly bitter. It's got all those other flavors that hops introduce into beer, the citrus notes, the floral notes. There's so many different complex flavors you can get if you can find that sweet spot, that balance that kind of strips the bitterness, where the bitterness is really just balancing out sweetness from the malts, and then you let all these other flavors come through. And Burn the Ships and Victory would definitely hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. My favorite of anything is IPAs. Double IPAs, regular IPAs. Nothing really too fruity, but I'm a big IPA fan. not really a porter fan, and I love the Kilgore. It was probably the best one I've ever had.
Well, and Kilgore is a very different type of porter, because a lot of porters are very rich and thick and robust and higher in the alcohol. They're really like a cold weather beer. We started debuting Kilgore as a spring beer. It's much lighter. It goes down easy. It's very easy drinking. It's got that nice light. It's almost like drinking iced coffee, and that was really kind of what we were going for. Anytime we go into styles, like we don't start out and say I want to make a coffee porter. It's I want a beer that tastes like this. Let's start playing around with ingredients and flavors and figuring out, how are we going to get into that sweet spot. Then at the end, we'll, when we're done with the beer design and we like what we have, then we'll go back and look at the technical specs and be like, all right, what does it have to say on the chalkboard in terms of a style so people know what they're getting themselves into? And I almost wish we could erase the styles off our board because, a lot of times people come in and say, I don't like IPAs. I don't like porters. I don't like this or that, and they immediately get turned off because they see the delineation. I'm like, well, our IPAs we specifically designed them to not be very bitter. I don't like bitter beers either. So I wish I could just erase the styles, but the connoisseurs would crucify us if we did so.
Right. Now, the Burn the Ships, it's a smoked IPA, right?
Correct.
Now, I've not seen a lot of those around.
It is the only commercially made smoked IPA in the country from what I can find so far.
Okay, because it really was one of the first, actually pretty much the first one I've ever heard of. And it just has like this unique taste that I really like.
Yeah, that was a dumb garage experiment of an idea. It was Mike had just moved out here from Southern California. He just moved into my house, and all the brewing he had been doing had been stovetop in the kitchen, malt extracts, and I'd been doing all grain batches. So for the first time that we brewed together, I was really just wanting to show him how the system worked. And I had a number of different ingredients, and one ingredient that I could never really find something to make with was smoked malt. We had this cherrywood smoked malt, and smoked beers are terrible, to be blunt. I really feel like there's really no one that's really hit the nail on the head in terms of what a smoked beer is. So it was an ingredient. We were like, well, let's try this crazy idea of seeing if we can balance out bitterness of hops by using, because smoky flavors tend to have their own bitterness characteristic. First 3 versions of it were undrinkable, but we just kept at it. 12 tries later, we had this beer, and I remember when we taste tested the 11th batch, it was good. And then he was like, well, I'm going to do it one more time and adjust some of the flavors a little bit. And then the version that we're running now, I remember trying it, and I'm like, fuck a smoked IPA. This is just a damn good beer. And that's really all we really want at the end of the day. And we only brought that beer to... It's a very expensive beer to make. We didn't think it was going to take off because it's a good 20-25% more expensive to a restaurant than your average, mainline craft beer. So actually the first restaurants that we pitched business to, I never brought samples of it. I never printed sales cards for it because I never thought anyone would buy it. We just brought it to market in the brewery thinking it would be a cool beer that we like, that, people that come into the brewery can enjoy. Restaurants found out about it. Some of them started putting it on tap. They couldn't keep it on tap at $7-8 a pint, and now it's the beer that we fight to keep up with. It's our most popular beer. It's on draft at 70 or 80 local restaurants in southern New Hampshire, and really looking forward to getting into cans one day.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good. That one is probably my second favorite after the Kilgore. If it wasn't that, it was definitely Burn the Ships. I also like the video you guys put out for it.
Yeah, that was
Was that the Facebook video?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just making sure I saw the right video.
No, that was from the Brew Hampshire documentary. That was a weird thing that just kind of fell in our laps. Where we had just signed the lease on our facility here in Merrimack, and I'm not big into Reddit, but I guess it's a thing. It must be because the rumor mills started up on Reddit that we were opening a brewery in Merrimack. At the same time, there are these filmmakers who are based out in Keene who are starting to develop this idea. They had done like a 15-minute video for Throwback, and they were like, we might have a documentary here that we can do, because the amount of breweries that are starting to pop up. They found out about us on Reddit. They were like, it'd be really cool if we could catch a brewery right before they open and then just follow them throughout this entire process. And they messaged us on Facebook and asked if they could come out and film us. And that footage of me telling the story is us brewing for the last time in the garage in January 2014, about 6 months before we opened.
Wow.
We had signed the lease on the facility about 3 weeks earlier, and we were just waiting for equipment to show up, and I was leaving my job like 3 days later.
So you designed the brew system?
Yeah, we built just about everything. I mean, our 10-barrel system is really just a much bigger version of our homebrew system. It's going to pay for a really sweet, brand new, shiny brewing system one day. But, when you're a small business, anything you can do, like any skill set you can leverage to save money, makes all the difference in the world. We opened a 10-barrel brewery for probably a quarter of what you would expect to pay to do it. But what was the flip side of that? It was, Mike and I were unemployed for 6 months and spent the entire time cleaning out this empty warehouse and building it into a brewery and bar. I'm just glad it worked out.
Yeah. You guys are busy all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, but it was it was fun. Looking back, I guess now I think it's fun.
I'm sure it was very stressful.
It was a mix of stress and excitement and I don't know, a little bit of everything. But we learned a lot, and the running joke that we kind of had throughout the whole process was, well, if this brewery thing doesn't work out, we can open a pretty sweet contracting company. And we dug our floor drain. I built the first bar I've ever built. We framed walls and hung drywall. We got really acquainted with paint, and we did all the wood flooring. We quoted out just about everything, and every time we got a quote back, it was like, yeah, let's just do it ourselves and rent tools from Home Depot. And
don't pay anybody.
Grinding the concrete floor was by far the worst, because it was an old, it's a 20-year-old warehouse with 20 years of grime on the floor, and we spent a week and a half just with like a concrete floor grinder going to town on this floor. One of us, it's like a floor buffer, but instead of like a buffer, it has like these diamond-tipped scrapers on it. So you got to really muscle this thing to keep it on the concrete, and just scrapes off it gives you a fresh layer of concrete. One of us going to town on that, and the other with the shop vac trying to catch all the concrete dust. So we didn't have to clean up the facility too much after the fact. But it was, I don't know, it was a wild ride. I know way more about concrete than I ever thought I would. I know way more about wastewater and codes and regulations and but I mean that's kind of the fun side of it too, is just being able to tinker and build. That's what got me into brewing, was just tinkering in the garage, seeing if I could build a little homebrew system.
That's nice.
And we turned that 5-gallon system into a 900-gallon a week brewery.
Damn.
Nice. Now, was that the first place you looked at for rental space? Like, I mean, there's a lot of those craft brewing places and stuff in Manchester, Portsmouth, places like that. Did you just want to stay in this area, or was that the only place you looked at in Merrimack?
No, it actually wasn't. I looked at a ton of facilities throughout 2013. The big thing for me was being in a town that, wanted us to be there. I talked to 6 different towns and looked at facilities in all 6. We wanted to be in the greater Manchester area because I knew we were going to be running our own distribution. So I knew that being in the greater Manchester area meant that within about an hour we could reach out and get beer to the major population centers in the state. Merrimack was actually not initially on the list because I considered it too far south, but there was just too much of an opportunity. Met with the town. The town was by far the most motivated of all the towns to get us to come in and move. They were willing to help us out. And then that means a lot when you have all these other skill sets and things like you want to focus on the thing that you want to do. But when you're opening a business, there's zoning codes and planning boards and, so many different things that you don't anticipate going to, and a lot of towns will just give you the code book and say, all right, figure it out and come back when you're ready and I'll tell you what you screwed up. And and all that time you're just burning money and but having a town that, if we had a question, the economic development office here in town had every decision maker around a table within 24 to 48 hours for us, so we could ask any question we wanted.
Oh, shit.
Get everything out on the table. They were very supportive. And it also helped that, our neighbors down the road at Anheuser-Busch, like the town is very familiar with brewing operations, and they knew they knew exactly what we were doing. And they were more than ready to help us get up and going.
Well, that answered my other question, was if you met resistance in the town about opening a brewery. So apparently not. They seemed pretty supportive about it and helpful.
Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't much resistance at all. Like, if you think about the things that could have happened, Merrimack was great. It was an awesome experience. The real challenges were figuring out how do we put a 50-foot floor drain into this concrete floor, and it's 3 days of jackhammering and floor sawing. Digging and those are the real challenges, just figuring out stuff that we had never done before, but having a town that was helping us out with all the paperwork stuff,
that's awesome.
That is awesome,
the shit that really doesn't matter stuff.
So why Ebenezer
Mudgett?
First off, are you just a straight history buff in general?
Kind of. I grew up with it. I grew up in a family where my parents were Civil War reenactors, so that's what I spent my childhood weekends going and doing. I didn't grow up watching. I mean, I did grow up watching some cartoons like Power Rangers and stuff, but I grew up watching the History Channel and documentaries and old TV shows like The Twilight Zone because my dad loved them. So I grew up with that kind of stuff, and then going into the military and getting beat up as an officer with military history, and I don't know. I'm a sucker for a good story, and the thing about history is there's stories that actually happen, which makes them even cooler. So
yeah.
The story of Ebenezer Mudgett was we wanted to name the brewery something that was local and had some meaning that not just we could be proud of, like something that represented us, but something that we thought that the surrounding community could be proud of. And a pre-Revolutionary War hero who kind of kicked off the domino effect of rebelling against the British. That's right up my alley. So the Pine Tree riots. You can tell the story in very whimsical fashion, but in actuality, it was a working man. He was a pillar of the local community. He was one of the founding members of Ware, New Hampshire. He owned a mill. He owned a tavern. So he sold beer and liquor. And when the British came up to arrest him for cutting down illegal pine trees, him and all the townsfolk got drunk at his bar and decided, you know what, fuck this. And, but that event, it was not a huge riot by comparison to a lot of the others you hear about during the Revolution, but it was the first, and it made national news at the time across the 13 colonies, which you think in the 1770s, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is
news
a huge
from
deal.
The frontier, because that's really what all this was. This was just blank woodland, and the people who lived up here were the crazy frontiersmen who were blazing the trail and willing to risk being killed by Indians and who knows what else. So I don't know, it's a really cool story. I think it represents who we are, and it's just that independent spirit of New Hampshire. That event ended up catapulting the rest of New England into revolution 3-4 years later.
Beer started it.
Beer starts just about, the Battle of Lexington and Concord.
Yeah.
The Battle of Lexington started on the Lexington Green because that's where the Buckman Tavern is. The Buckman Tavern, which still stands, it's a history, now a historical monument. That was the rally point for the Lexington militia, which was only about 80-something dudes. But it was, hey, if the alarm bells go off, everyone meet at the tavern. And while they were waiting for the British at 2 a.m, they were sitting around the bar drinking beer until someone said, "Oh, they're coming up the road," and they went out onto the green. So it's that's
bunch of drunk soldiers going at it.
General Washington during the war had Congress approve as part of the soldiers' daily. Anyone who volunteered for the Continental Army was guaranteed as part of their daily rations 1 quart of beer per day. Wow. So it's beer fuels the flames burning within our armies. That's what Congress wrote in November 1775. So this was during the Siege of Boston. Beer was a big part of American history. I think it's still a big part of it. I think it's becoming a bigger part, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you are. It's delicious. But how did you even get here? Because you're from, what, Washington area?
Yeah, I'm from the Washington, D.C. area.
You went to the Army.
Yeah.
You come out and you end up in New Hampshire?
So I grew up in the D.C. area. I went to college in New Haven, Connecticut, and I'd spent some time in New Hampshire. I mean, I've always been, I guess, a bit of a live free or die guy, and just something about New Hampshire stuck with me, and kind of told myself if conditions are set right and I have the ability to move there, I'm going to do it. And it was after my time in the Army when, I was out in El Paso, Texas, and I kind of had the ability to go anywhere. I interviewed for jobs all over the country and ended up landing a job at a biotech company down in Boston, Cambridge area, and that allowed me to move to New Hampshire, bought a house, made sure the house had a garage so I could start brewing. And I drink a lot of craft beer in the Army, and that was kind of the thing. My last year in the Army, like, that's really what I wanted to do. I sent emails to breweries all over the Rockies and the West Coast, trying to see if I could get a gig. Now I know why they didn't reply to me, because everyone wants to work at a brewery. I get those emails all the time now.
I almost worked at Sam's, and when I lived in Pennsylvania, I had an opportunity to go to Sam's, and I I turned it down because I didn't want to do the hours. It was 12 on.
Oh, yeah, it's manufacturing, shift work.
And I had, before I moved down, I worked at a chemical manufacturing plant, and it was 12 hours a day, 4 on, 3 off, and then rotating schedules, and it was not conducive to family life. So, I mean, the money was good. I don't want to do those hours. I'll figure something else out. But I was close to at least Sam's.
But brewing at that level, like, it is straight up manufacturing. It's shift work, and a lot of people don't realize it, but like 80 to 90% of brewing is cleaning shit. It's constantly cleaning. Clean brewery makes clean beer, and that's just, I don't know. I drank enough beer in the Army that, and I really started falling in love with craft beers that I wanted, that's what I wanted to do. I even looked to see if the GI Bill would pay for me to go to brewmaster school. It doesn't cover that. So I ended up here in New England and got the job at this biotech company. I managed upstream manufacturing for rare disease pharmaceuticals, but at the same time, I was plussing up my beer education. I mean, a ton of the engineers at these biotech companies, they're all home brewers. I mean, the earliest form of biotechnology is beer brewing. You're using a living microorganism to produce a desired result. And that's all beer brewing is. It's just much simpler in terms of the process. I think it's more challenging to make a good beer, though, because no one cares what their pharmaceutical tastes like. And that's a very subjective thing to try and pinpoint. Which is why I have a business partner, Mike. He's the artist. Yeah, it's beer brewing's a blending of art and science. I kind of bring the science, he brings the art. That guy has it nailed down. He knows, and that's kind of the challenge in beer design is when you brew something, you have to wait 6 to 8 weeks, small scale, just to be able to try it. And then you have to go back 6-8 weeks ago and figure out, what do I change to get the flavor that I want? That's really hard to do. A lot of times chefs, you can taste something in real time and know you can just tweak it right then and there. You can't really do that with beer. And the beer tastes very different at every stage in the process. So being able to taste it post-mash, post-boil, into start of fermentation, end of fermentation, and know what you're going to get at the end, that takes a lot of skill. And Mike's definitely got that nailed down.
It's a lot of notes, I'm assuming.
It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So all your hops come locally? You guys go out to local farmers? No?
It's almost impossible to get hops locally.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Any hops that are brewed locally, like in New England, which is so minute in the grand scheme of hops production across the world. New England barely produces any. The larger brewers snag it up, brew a couple batches with it. There's only a couple of varieties of hops that really grow well in New England. We get all of our hops from the Pacific Northwest. We have contracts with 7 different hop farms.
Wow.
Out in western Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Northern California.
So you have to pick out your hops? Like you go there, like on I think the Sam's commercials you used to see back in the day. You see them like holding it, breaking it open.
Yeah, we don't.
Like, nah,
yeah, we don't do that.
We've never visited a hop farm. As much as we would love to, it's like, at the same time, we're still a small 6-person business, and it's like if one of us leaves, somebody else has. That's all the fun stuff. Like, yeah, you want to do, but at the end of the day, it's just knowing what hops, and we're always playing around with hops to there's so many different varieties, and trying to figure out how they blend together, how they play with each other. Like when we were designing the Victory, we just brewed a generic IPA, small scale, and then we dry hopped individual bottles with small pinches of combinations of hops to figure out how different hops played with each other. So on a given evening, Mike and I are sitting there drinking 12 different bottles of IPAs and taking notes of like I learned I hate Amarillo hops. Like that's what I learned throughout this whole process. I don't know why everybody uses it. I'm not a big fan of the hop. But that's me. Everyone's palate is different, but I think it's that trial and error, like that. It's not crushing up the hops and shoving them in your face and smelling them. It's introducing them into a process and then trying to figure out, all right, is this an enjoyable drinking experience? Like, hops smell great, it's awesome, but at the end of the day, you're trying to make a product that someone can drink and enjoy easily. So that's really the process for us. And then we go and try to get contracts for them. Hops are the most difficult raw material to get. Really? Hands down. You got to pay for them a year ahead of time if you want to get the hops you want.
Right.
And it's all contract based, which means how much money can you throw at it? Because there's so many breweries out there. There's only so many hop farms, and it's every fall that they harvest. So what ends up happening is every fall they fulfill contracts, then they start taking orders for the following year's contracts, so they know what to plant. Like Victory, the entire first year that we produced it, we only served it at the brewery because the hops were so difficult to get. There are 2 different hops in it that are almost impossible to get in volume when you're a new brewery. So we've legitimately told our farms, we're like, if anyone flakes on a contract, we'll buy it. Like, hands down, we'll buy it. And then we got a call a couple falls ago, like September or October, and they're like, yep, someone flaked on a contract and this is how much it is. And I'm like, that's a lot of Simcoe hops, but we'll buy it. Like, we'll take it because I know we can sell this. So it's a every year thing. And then, like, now we're getting towards the end of the summer, so we're starting to look at what do we think we're going to produce in 2018, 2019, so that we can start planning our hops buying going forward. It's challenging. Yeah. We actually specifically designed Burn the Ships with hops, when we were small scale, because we knew when we opened, you're lowest guy on the totem pole in terms of buying up the contract, list. So we specifically designed Burn the Ships with hops we knew would be pretty easy to get. Victory went all out. We were like, there's no holds barred, wherever we can get into it. Ton of Citra, ton of Simcoe.
Right.
It's delicious.
It is delicious. Now, in the grand scheme of things, where does New England fall, like, craft brewery wise? It seems like there's a ton of them around here. I know we're 6 states but a region, but there's Colorado. I know a lot come out of North Carolina. I mean, are we even really in the
Portland, Oregon?
No, we're in Oregon.
We're in the conversation in terms of like sheer volume. Southern California, Colorado. Like, yeah, there's more breweries per capita, but it's a question of are you a quality versus quantity guy? Like right now, New England style IPAs and hoppy beers from New England. I think New England has its own stake in the game when it comes to kind of pushing the barrier of what a beer is. That's kind of like what I said earlier. We're, as an industry, we're just scratching the surface of what a beer can be and what you can get into a beer. Because you can put anything into beer. And now you have all these, in New Hampshire specifically, you can have a 20-gallon system and for $240 start a brewery and start selling bottles at your local bottle shop.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
And when you're only doing 20 gallons, you can throw anything into that. Like the guys out at Earth Eagle did a hogshead beer where they went to a butcher shop after like a pig was butchered, and they took the head and they boiled it and they made a stock out of the head of this hog, and then they took that stock and brewed a beer with it, and it was like this bacony, meaty, rich, like, and it's like at smutty nose scale, you have to go through so many pig heads that's not even possible. But there's all these small breweries that are local, like you got where Throwback started out, and Earth Eagle and Henniker, and right now you got Pipe Dream on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
Guy's putting peanut butter in his stout, and it's incredible. So it's like that. That's what makes beer fun. Like I think that, again, we're just scratching the surface of what a beer can be.
Well, you mentioned it earlier about the Kilgore. very iced coffee-ish,
Yeah.
which is huge around this area. And before you said it, I couldn't really put my finger on why I liked it so much, but that's kind of what it is. It's like perfect balance of the coffee and beer. And I'm just, like I said, I'm not a porter stout kind of guy. And when you said,
I'm not either, which is why we hadn't developed one.
they typically turn me off because there's that stagnant like area of that beer that just they all kind of taste the same. They're thick and heavy, but that one that's something special. So, but you nailed it down. The iced coffee thing, that's really what I like about it, which is perfect for this area, like I said. So
it's a very popular beer. We had it as a spring seasonal, and then this past year we had to make it. We decided to bring it as a full year-round beer.
Yes.
Just because of how popular it is.
It was awesome. So I had it that first time. I went back, I think, the summer to get more because I was telling him, like, you gotta try this beer. It's really good. So I go down to get it. It's like, it's a seasonal. Oh, all right. Well,
he didn't really understand the seasonal thing.
I'm out of here. That's when I think that's when I tried Burn the Ships for the first time. And it's been one of those two. Like, it's been that waiting for Kilgore, and then it's back and forth.
Oh yeah, we got Kilgore at the brewery all year round now.
Yeah, the Kilgore was the last one, like you said, with the labeling on it. You kind of go, I'm not a porter guy, so yeah, I'll try that one some other time. And it was the last one I tried, and it's actually a lot better than I would have expected by the whole porter label.
Yeah, it's a very light body. It's not thick. It's not syrupy. It's just an easy drinking beer. It took Jake over a year to get that thing right. I mean,
he nailed it.
My hat's off to him.
Yeah.
How many flavors do you have?
We produce 9 different products currently.
Planning on more? Or
we're always planning on more, but we're never in a rush to release new products. It's kind of like, what kind of company do you want to be? Do you want to be one that releases 12 new beers a year? Or do you, for us, it's, do you want to be mediocre at a lot of things or perfect at a handful of things? And, even if you look at our production rhythm, like, yes, we produce 9 beers. 5 of them are on tap all year round. And then we have a rotator based on the seasons. But really, only 2 of the 9 beers are really dominating our production schedule, and that's Burn the Ships and Victory. I mean, we were brewing those beers every single week. We're packaging or kegging them every single week. The others are just peppered into the manufacturing schedule as needed. These are the 2 flagships. It's what we focus on. It's really all we offer now to restaurants, because we're managing keg inventories, and anytime there's a ton of kegs filled with Kilgore, it's like, well, can't really suffice all that you did, from a business perspective and a logistics perspective, just kind of buckling down on the beers that are making a name for us. And the one thing we've learned over the last 3 years of being a brewery is every single one of our customers, for the most part, is either a Burn the Ships or a Victory person. It's one or the other. Complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what an IPA can be. And it's the Burn the Ships customers tend to be a little more rambunctious, and the Victory customers tend to be a little classier.
I tend to limit myself to a 2 Burn the Ships limit.
You got to tell the story.
I can't. I love it. But I
love a good Burn the Ships story.
I love Burn the Ships, but when I go, I gotta stay at 2 if I'm ordering it at a restaurant or something. All right, so my wife absolutely loves Burn the Ships. It's her absolute hands down favorite beer. She's like me. She loves to try different kinds of beers. I mean, she wasn't always really an IPA person. We went to Tuckaway Tavern one night, the night we discovered it, and I believe they were having some sort of special or something with it. Like, you got it and you got something else with your dinner or whatever. So I was driving, so I only had 2, but she ended up having 6 in like 3.5 hours. And the last one was not really, she didn't drink the whole thing, but they kind of gave it to us for free because they brought it to our table mistakenly. So she's like, hell, you're driving, you don't need it. So she was out in the parking lot with a friend of ours smoking a cigarette behind the car. And I guess she dropped her cigarette and went down to pick it over. And she's a little top heavy. She fell face first into the parking lot. And her face was a little scratched up. And she still loves to drink that beer. All the time wants to order it. I didn't realize she had fallen in the parking lot until 10 minutes later when we got to the gas station and she got out of the car to throw something up and her face was all banged up and I had no like, how did that happen? How did you get like that?
Yeah, I don't recommend 6 burn the ship. Man, 7% beer. Like, I
she
consider myself a beer drinker. Like, I'll drink some beers, but
she didn't know
2
that.
to 3 burn the ships or 2 to 3 victories. It's all I can do.
Me too.
Yeah.
Ever since that, I've limited myself to 2 in any interaction. You don't need more than that. Yeah. She has since learned her lesson, but still loves it. So
I think most people have figured that out by now, which is why I'm still surprised at how quickly we turn over burn the ships kegs at restaurants when they're only selling, Bud Light. I can have 6 of those in a night. And I can see why Bud Light turns over all day, every day at restaurants. But looking at the consumption trends of a $7.50 pint of beer that most people only drink 2 of, like, it's something special about it.
I know my brother came and got the contact information. He was a sous chef at Cooper's Hill. Yeah, you guys just got into.
Yeah,
like, that's how
that place is awesome.
Yeah, but he said that their Budweiser and Bud Light, they don't sell. It's all craft stuff out there. And I know as soon as one of their lines was done, that keg was empty. You guys were going in as far as burn the ships. But you guys they already got the cans of Victory in. Like, yeah, it was awesome because we went down there and like, just give him your information. Like, he works there. He was a sous chef there, so I know he helped.
No, we're excited about that one. I think Burn the Ships is going to play really well there because they're they put a lot of emphasis on their whiskeys. Yeah. And I think I kind of equate Burn the Ships as like like if you're a Scotch drinker or like a bourbon or whiskey drinker, then Burn the Ships is a beer that you're going to really dig. It kind of brings the same types of characters or flavors and characteristics that you're looking for when you're drinking whiskey. So I have a feeling Burn the Ships is going to fly there. I mean, Burn the Ships flies everywhere it goes on tap. So
I'm just impressed with how...
I think people just really dig the name. It's probably really just a terrible beer that everybody's just getting tricked on the marketing.
No, that's really good.
It's definitely not a terrible beer.
No, I could definitely say from...
Try to keep myself grounded.
Especially now from trying all the other... it's basically just Ben IPAs. My neighbor, he feeds me all these different IPAs and double IPAs that I've never even heard of before. And they're good, but there is a different flavor with Burn the Ships. Like, whether it's the smoked IPA, like you said, like it's the only one that you can find, like there is a different flavor that, it's good. It's not bitter. I don't drink Sam's for that reason. Like, I don't like the taste of a lot of IPAs. Actually, some of them now have gotten really good, but Burn the Ships is probably...
It's gonna buy me a boat one day.
One of the best ones. That you're gonna name Burn the Ships?
Now I have one quick question.
Go for it.
Obviously, you play around to find new things. Have you played around with the helium stuff, the helium beers? No. I've been seeing a lot of these. It is bullshit, but I think...
I try to stay away from fads.
No, I don't mean to put out. I just mean just to play around with and see if you find something.
That's a time thing. It's like, we barely have time to... People ask us, when's the next new thing? Like, when's your 10th beer going to come out? And it's like...
We don't have time for that shit.
Spring 2018 is our target. So, about a year. Like, it's... That's really what our goal is. Nothing goes on the board unless it's perfect, and designing a new beer is a several month to year-long plus process. And part of that is time. It's the time you have to wait for the batch to complete so you can taste it and then go back and do another batch of it. And, a lot of times the batch, like even Jake, when he was designing Kilgore, there was a level of frustration with him between months like 4 and 8 because the beer was good, it was drinkable, it was a good coffee porter, but that's not the standard. It's not making a drinkable beer, it's making something perfect that can go up on the board. And by perfect, that's really hard to define, but it really is just beers that we love to drink. And I'm like, this... Because I remember we tried like Mexican roast coffee from A&E, and we added it on the hot side. And I remember drinking. I'm like, yeah, this tastes like a coffee porter, but it feels like it's missing something. And then that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, cream and sugar, because this just tastes like bitter black coffee. Like, it's just very robust and rich, and it's like, all right, man, go back to the drawing board.
You guys talked with them, right? They were telling you how to roast the beans.
No, they were. They definitely worked with us because we've never worked with coffee before. It's actually interesting how similar beer brewing is to coffee roasting and coffee brewing. Like they invited us down to their shop in Amherst, and they did in the beer world, we do beer flights. They do coffee cuppings, which is like little mini cups of different types of coffee.
A flight of coffee.
Yeah, and they gave recommendations of different types of coffees we should use, and then we brought them up to our facility and showed them the brewing process, and they helped us pick out, what part of the process should we add the coffee, what size should the grinds be, what there's so much that goes into it, and part of that is having a good partner that can help you through it, so you're not just dumping Folgers from Shaw's into your fermenter and hoping it comes out good. But you'd be surprised. That's what a lot of beer design is just, I'll put coffee in this porter and it'll be good. And it's like, well, it's always the little things that make the big difference. And we use Papua New Guinea roast coffee that's finely ground. And we add it only in the last 24 hours of fermentation. So we basically treat the fermenter as if it was a cold brew batch of, like if you go to Buckley's and get, cold brew coffee, that's really what we're treating it as. And it's a much smaller amount of coffee because we're only looking for the flavor, not the caffeine.
Right.
But by adding the coffee in that last 24 hours, which is about how long, it's 22 to 24 hours that cold brew coffee goes in. Because one thing I learned is that when you're making coffee, the temperature, like a coffee brewer, is really only there for time. Because by heating up the water, you can make coffee instantly. But if you have a day and you just put coffee grinds into water, you'll get the same type of coffee. It's just that time difference. But the high temperature produces it extracts a lot of bitter tannins out of the coffee grinds, which is why we add cream and sugar. Papua New Guinea is a very soft, fruity coffee bean. It's lightly roasted, and by adding it to the cold side of the process, it's 68, 70 degrees into the fermenter and letting it sit for 24 hours, you're only getting those nice fruity coffee flavors and none of the bitter tannins, which is why cold brew coffee is so good. It's definitely learned a lot in the last 3 years. I knew nothing about coffee beforehand.
What's going on, people? We just stepped outside to grab a beer, and I figured while we did that, I would stop and tell you, make sure you go down to Able Ebenezer every Tuesday night, go see my man Joe Sylvester and play some Joe Trivia Team Quiz. Get yourself a team, go down there, grab some burner ships, some victory nor defeat, some Emmawood while it's in stock. Season's going to be up quick. Man puts on a great show. There's a lot of good questions. You guys will have a blast. When you go down there, tell them OCD Off-Color Discussion sent you. You heard it here. You won't get nothing for it, but at least we know you're listening. Now, back to the show.
I got into podcasts.
We're back.
One of those people who's always up on the new stuff going on, tech stuff.
I think we started last fall is when we started talking about it.
No, it was sooner. No, it was right about this time last year. It was at the birthday party.
It's almost fall.
Right there. All right, close enough. Cool. Yeah, so it was your daughter's birthday party we're talking about. Because I've listened to him since I moved up here. I subscribed to Rogan's
about 2 years, right?
Years ago when I lived in Pennsylvania and never listened to it. And then after I moved up here and started going to the gym, I used to live out in Greenville.
Yep.
Before I bought this house. So since I was driving to the gym all the time, that's when I started listening to Rogan. And that just blew up into, I think I listened to 35 as fast as I can keep up in the queue. An hour to 3 hours, 4 hours. Some of R.A. Shafir's have been 5 hours. His one with Rolf Potts that he just did was awesome. He talks about his travels because he disappeared for 4 months. Do you know who R.A. Shafir is? No? So he's a comedian.
Okay, so I know the name. So, didn't know he disappeared for 4 months.
Yeah, so he's a comedian, one of Rogan's boys, has a show on Comedy Central, a new special on Netflix, but he started getting money and I don't think he got offered as much as Chappelle, but he was good, but he went to a flip phone instead of a smartphone and started kind of pulling away from technology, and then he just went to Indonesian area, Malaysia, fucking just cut ties with everybody, disappeared over there for months, and basically backpacked across South Asia. And then he's finally back. I think it was 2 or 3 months that he was gone. And now he's back talking about it. And Rolf Potts, who Tim Ferriss also mentioned, wrote a book called Vagabonding. And it's basically about how to backpack all over the place with like what to take, what to expect, and shit like that. It was really neat. But yeah, it's.
It's on those journeys that you find yourself. You learn a lot.
So we were talking about last February at the birthday party.
Yeah, it was. I was about the same too. About 2 years ago, I found a couple podcasts on YouTube. They were gaming podcasts, and the dudes were just so wild and out of it. And then they started up another one, which was called Off Topic, which was not really all that gaming. It was a little bit of everything, which kind of sparked that looks like fun to do. Just sit around a high top table and drink beer and talk about shit that's going on. So I've actually just started expanding my repertoire of podcasts that I have in my little list, but I just started the Rogan one, which he's been telling me about for a long time. But
it's a commitment of a show, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
you go in and out. Like, I'm sure, like, some of his I've had to go back and listen to a couple of times because
it's just 3 hours. Like,
right, and just from being at work, like, I get it, I drift, and then come back and it's like, oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so about a year ago at my daughter's party, we were, it was getting late, everybody's pretty much leaving, and we were just sitting around having a couple beers, and I was telling him about it. I think we were testing out some virtual reality thing he had on his phone and the Oculus thing, and
yeah, the same
I was telling him about doing it and seeing if anybody was in, and he was like, I'm in. And then he got this house, and we had the room to do it, and
that's why I bought this house.
That's why I bought my house. I had a garage. I knew I needed a garage. In addition
to the school systems and the nice neighborhood.
That's all icing on the cake. No, I remember I told my realtor, I was like, I need a house with a garage because I'm going to build it. Like, I lived in that house for 4 years. I never put a car in the garage. Like, it was always my brewery. And But it kind of goes back to the hardest thing to do when you want to just start something is the 0 to 1. If you consider 0 being I have this idea and 1 being the first step of execution, it's being able to set all the conditions so that you can make that step from 0 to 1. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to get to 2, 4, 10, 100, a million, however you're quantifying it. That hardest step is 0 to 1. Because you talk about all the things you want to do in here to make it even better. Think about all the shit you had to do just get to, like, I don't even know where you'd find microphones. Like, I don't even know what this thing does. Like, it's that's what I mean. Is that it's something that you're interested in enough that you went and did all the research and you dedicated the time and the money just to getting it set up, and you dedicated a room and a house. Like, that's the hardest step, is being able to just set those conditions. Now the sky's the limit. Like, once you make it 0 to 1, sky's the limit.
It's been, if nothing else, fun and interesting. I mean, everybody we've sat and talked with has just been, a new experience each time, which is, I couldn't be doing anything better.
No, when Joe told me like months ago about starting a podcast and wanted me as a guest, I'm like, deal, 'cause podcasts are the future. And
yeah, for sure.
Same thing for me. I'm still in my 0 to 1 moment of like, I would rather, anytime I can get in front of people and talk about beer or just talk about us or our journey, like it's one step forward. It's taking the business up a notch, no matter how big of a notch. And it's on long enough, like in Shawshank Redemption, pressure and time. On long enough of a timeline, I'll make it through this wall.
Right. I mean, and the good thing with this is I thought it'd be interesting idea just for he was kind of on the same thing with the open topic thing. Like, we both are into supporting local business, local ventures, charities, stuff like that. But we also like to just have conversations about lots of shit. So it was kind of just a fun thing to start. And
no, that's actually been one of my favorite parts about with running a business, opening a brewery, whatever. Is just even my time in the Army. One of the biggest things that I loved is just the people that I met, the diversity of people, the diversity of ideas, and just being able to talk to people and learn from them. And
it makes you grow.
Yeah, it makes tomorrow a better day than today. It's you're constantly growing, and I get most of my growth now from my customer base and shooting the shit, telling stories, and drinking beer. And I mean, it's
it all happens around beer.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask a question. Are you a fight fan?
What does that mean?
MMA.
Oh,
boxing?
hell yeah.
Yeah?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can ask this question.
I want to know, are you going to be watching the fight on the 26th?
Yes.
Are you... Quickly, Just a sidetrack. Why do you guys close at 8 o'clock?
Because they have to.
You have to?
No,
in the
we don't have
district,
to.
or-
No, we can stay open until I think 1 or 2 a.m.
Okay, I didn't
really?
know if it was like a zoning thing or you just wanted to
Nope.
be home at night.
No, it's a mixture of. Okay, so part of it's that the
can't
other
live there.
there's some boring reasons like insurance, like our liability insurance goes up after 8.
Right.
But at the same time, even if it didn't, I kind of like the spot that we're in. Like it's kind of like if you're done drinking at 8 o'clock, then you're not really. It's if you're starting to drink at 8, 9 o'clock at night and you're looking to make it a 1 to 2 a.m. night, then, the local cops in town, who are some of my best regulars right now, they're going to cease being regulars. And I just don't want to invite those troubles because that involves more people, more insurance, more attention. Like, we would have to have multiple bartenders. We'd probably have to have bouncers at some point. Like,
Yeah.
and at that point, it takes away from what that facility really is. Like, yeah, we have a really cool bar. I'm still blown away by how many people drive up to an industrial park to drink beer 7 days a week, even when we do close at 8 o'clock. Like, Friday, Saturday night is standing room only. We built that bar as purely to be a retail space because that facility is primarily a production and distribution facility. We have 12 by 24 feet of high ceiling cold room space that's stocked to the brim with beer all the time. We have the 2 delivery vehicles that are on the road 6-7 days a week. We're running production 5-6 days a week.
I mean, I love the fact that
even
you
a
guys
lot of times
close at
people
8.
think like no one's there. Like our sign says on the door that we're open from, at 4 during the week. People don't think that we're there at all. Like, no, we're there from 7 a.m. on. It's just at the end of the day, we open up our little retail space to showcase what we're doing from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Right.
And I think it's important not to get away from that. And, even today, like people ask us if we're going to add a restaurant or make it, it's like, no, this is an industrial park. Like, we're up here, we're not in downtown Manchester or Nashua because we needed a loading dock, industrial utilities, space. Like,
Yeah.
it's all those considerations. And most of our growth when it comes to the company isn't about how do we get more people into the ale room, because I really want the ale room not to be for tourists. Like, we're not on the New Hampshire beer map.
You're not?
No.
Is that you're not on the passport?
We're like the black
right?
sheep of the beer community.
You're not on the passport.
No, we're not on the passport.
I actually just learned last time I was there that people order food and have it delivered there, which is so, like, I saw. Yeah, I never thought about that.
I see us as a catalyst for local businesses, and it's not just like local delivery places, but all the restaurants that we service. It's all about how do we help them make money? How do we help them become more successful? So a lot of times, if a restaurant brings us in and it's not selling well, I have no problem with taking a step back. It's learning where is the right fit.
Right.
And that's kind of what I see us as, is just a catalyst for the local community. I'm not trying to compete with the bars that have the experience and the infrastructure to handle the 8 o'clock to 2 a.m. crowd. Like, I'm not trying to cut into that market space because I'm going to end up, one, screwing it up, and I'm going to spend way too much on it. We're really in a sweet spot right now. We have a very responsible customer base. If people want a full meal and a great night out on the town, I can recommend every single restaurant that's on our website right now. Go to one of them and have a great time. They have our beer on tap. I'm making money on the deal. They're making money on the deal. It's like, I don't know.
I
like
dig the
capitalism
idea.
works or something.
How are you guys zoned, or like what are you classified at that you
We're
don't
classified
have
as
to,
Industrial 1, so light industrial up on Columbia Circle.
and the bar is that considered that's a tasting room?
It is considered an accessory use restaurant.
Okay.
So yeah, we are primarily an industrial production facility with an accessory use retail / restaurant, because what we produce is a food item. I learned a lot about zoning. It's all bullshit.
No, but I was trying to think,
it doesn't change how much we pay. It just means we had to sit in front of a board of people who are in charge of what the definitions of what you're doing is, and they get to determine whether or not you're allowed to do it. Which is why I love Merrimack, because they really don't. They're just like, yeah, are you a cool dude? Yeah, come on. Like, we want
Supportive,
cool people here. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I just thought it was kind of a cool concept because I never really thought about, hey, they got food. Where'd they order it? Like, did they order it here? Oh, you can just order food out like that. It was just kind of an interesting thing that I'd never realized or thought about doing.
It's like the reverse restaurant.
And I love the fact that you guys close at 8. I mean, I was just curious because There are
So we do like last call around 8, and a lot of our and again, we're really focused on the regular customers, the people who live and work around here. The tourists, and we're in a unique part in the beer market. We could do zero tourist advertising, and tourists are still going to show up because craft beer is relevant. Right. So they show up anyways. Which it's great anytime we can share, especially when we can share our beer with people who are from out of state. It's I don't know, having those people that come back 2, 3, 4 times a week, who bring their friends, who make it a part of their like weekly rhythm. Like we have like every day of the week at the brewery has its crowd. Like Friday night is the CrossFit guys. They come in and they know that's why I say our last call is really around 8-ish, because they finish the last workout. They come in at 7:45, 7:50. I'll pour them a couple rounds. I don't care. Like they're good friends. They're great customers, and I mean you want to encourage and support that. But I know that after 8 o'clock when we're working the bar, new people aren't coming in. Right. So that's kind of where the 8 o'clock thing is. We do last call around 8. And then we're cleaning up and sweeping up by 9. Yeah, and nobody's housed. Nobody's making an issue. I mean, we turn over so many seats on Friday, Saturday night. It's not that people are drinking 6, 7 beers. They're all drinking a beer or two, filling their growler on the way home, doing Friday afternoon. Let's go drink with the work buddies. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great atmosphere. I mean, it just let you go in, you can have 1 or 2, and I get out of work late most days during the week, so I mean, I have stopped by, had 1, and headed home. But I was just curious about it. Yeah, usually it's just to pick up something like fill a growler or burn the ships.
Yeah, that's perfect.
But yeah, I was just curious. So back to my original question: do you have a favorite in the fight?
McGregor.
Thank you. We have a buddy unnamed who gives Mayweather a 0% chance of winning the fight. So I was just curious.
I can't say he has 0.
I know. That's what I said.
But no, I actually have a bet with a friend.
I think it's going to be a hell of a fight.
Oh, I hope so.
I got a bet with a friend of 2 growlers of choosing. He's a Henniker man. And I'm obviously, you know what I want. So.
But on the Kilgore.
Yeah.
So wait, what are the rules for this fight?
It's a boxing match.
McGregor can't do MMA shit.
Nope.
You know that's not going to happen.
It's a straight boxing match.
Yeah, well, it's a whole night of boxing. He'll get sued. It's already in the contract. Like if he does anything that's outside of boxing, he will lose.
I'm just saying, when you're a fighter, I don't know obviously, but I think that when you're in that thing that you dedicate your life to, at some point there's those automatic switches where he's gonna get hit hard enough, and then immediately his gut's gonna go take him to the ground. I don't know. We'll see, but
I don't think so.
If it's a pure boxing match, I'll take Mayweather.
It's supposed to be. I mean, that's what it's being billed as. So
it is a pure boxing match. They just released the card. I haven't looked at.
What's McGregor's fighting background?
MMA. So he did some amateur boxing, or not even like a boxing match. I mean, he did boxing. He trained boxing, but basically it's karate. So he's got more of a karate background, but MMA. But I mean, you learn on striking. So I'm not. You punch. Punching is punching. The only thing that's different between boxing and MMA as far as striking is your stance and your feints. You know what I mean? Like your movement might be a little different, but you're still punching.
Yeah. So Mayweather has a home field advantage.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
It's his ring. Like the ring's different. But I think what's going to mess up him is going to be the stance. The way that McGregor comes in, and it's not the normal boxing hands up, which is going to... I mean, how do you approach that after, 30... Since he was 6'5", since he really started, since being in that position and looking at people in this position...
That's what I mean. I feel like habits
what do you do when somebody's like...
It's like I can't use my legs. It's like I can't...
I think the difference
brawl with this guy.
I think the way I look at it, or my thought would be, they have a training camp. Like he's been doing nothing but training boxing for weeks going up to the fight. You know what I mean? Like you're not focused on that. So granted, I'm not saying that it could never happen where he wouldn't kick back to an instinct and go to a kick or a takedown. But when you're been doing this for the last 12 weeks and working on that, like you're gonna be stuck in that position for a while. My take.
I'm really interested to see this fight because
one thing Mayweather hasn't seen is McGregor is like a black belt level 10 like troller trash talker. I mean, he has been messing with this dude. Who else has he done this kind of stuff to him?
I mean, they all talk shit, but not to this level. Nobody that will wear a pinstripe fuck you suit went to a person that can't read and wear the jersey of the guy that allegedly fucked your wife. So I mean, it's
gonna be I hope it's just a bang out.
I think it's gonna be a good fight because you got Conor McGregor in his primes, obviously one of the best fighters out there, and then you have Mayweather, who's arguably the best boxer going right now, and the issue is you have Conor McGregor who's being pulled out of a fight style that he's trained his entire life for, and yes, you can spend several months, Rocky 3 style montage training how to, box on the beaches of Southern California, but it's like once you're in the arena and you get hit that first time, it's like, how does your brain, after however many years of training it, to be like, if you get hit this way, kick him upside the head, take him down, brawl, whatever. I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens.
I think if nothing else, I mean, McGregor has a little bit more on the line than Mayweather does. I mean, Mayweather is undefeated, right?
Mayweather has more on the line than McGregor.
See, I don't think so. He's gone through his career. He retired, and he's coming back out of retirement to fight this trash talking.
You're gonna ruin your record, dude. You got a perfect 49-0, but he needs the 50-0 to get above Rocky Marciano.
He does need the 50. I agree with that. I thought he should have tried to get it before he retired.
So this is a bigger fight than that because it's the first. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this not the first time that an MMA champion is fighting a boxing champion?
I
and over the
so.
last decade and a half, like UFC has been carving so much market share from boxing, and now the whole talk is, well, why is boxing even interested in it? We're past the whole Vladimir Klitschko phase and Roy Jones Jr. Like we're past those days.
Yeah, I mean, I think boxing was a dying sport. MMA was literally suffocating it out.
So now you have UFC versus... It's basically in the eyes of the general population who isn't diehard about fighting and fighting styles. This is UFC versus boxing, the institution of boxing. Yeah. Can the undefeated boxing guy... we're going to answer the question, at least this is the way that people are going to digest it. We're going to answer the question of, is the best of boxing better than the best of Ultimate Fighting? Is Ultimate Fighting now the future and boxing is dead?
I mean, McGregor has to be UFC's biggest star. Love him or hate him, right now he is their biggest star. He is, and I think he's got more on the line because he's the one who called this thing out. Like McGregor said, I will go in the ring with Mayweather. What is this? Almost 2 years in the making now since his second championship that he had or whatever. So, I mean, I personally think he's got more on the line because he's been doing all the trash talking. He's the one who called him out. He's the one who's transitioning styles and still talking as much shit. I mean,
that's why he gets that handicap where he's not putting up as much online. I mean, what are they going to say? Oh yeah, no shit, you were going to lose. It's Mayweather. You know what I mean? It's not like he called out a lower tier person and started at the bottom. He went straight to the top. So. Oh yeah, I lost. It's like when he lost Nate Diaz the first time. You went to jump up a weight class, you jumped up 2. All right, you got choked out, man. And then what did he do? He went right back at it and won a close fight, but he still won. Like up 2 weight classes before dropping down to the weight class he wanted.
Right.
Before beating the shit out of Eddie Alvarez.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, if you're gonna do it, cool. Okay, you don't have as much on the line because in a boxing match, most people probably think you're the underdog. But when you do as much shit talking and running your mouth on top of that, I think that kind of amps it up to the next level where you are so confident that you're gonna win that you're holding it all on the line right there. It's probably, like I said the other night, it's not going to ruin his UFC career. Absolutely not. If he loses or not. But
no, because it's
not going to lose.
Like boxing go. Like bottom line, boxing just isn't anywhere near as exciting as the UFC. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, he lost in a boxing match, and it's like, well, yeah, because he was restricted. If he could just beat the crap out. Like, all right, Mayweather and McGregor 2 in an octagon. Let's see what happens.
He said he would do it.
That is, would anybody here take Mayweather in an octagon against McGregor?
Fuck no.
So that's my point. Is that's why if Mayweather wins, like, well, yeah, he's supposed to. It's like, you know, putting one of the Serena sisters in tennis against Shaquille O'Neal and being like, well,
good luck.
I love those analogies, man.
I just make this shit up, man.
It's great. The Beyonce one, the Shaq one.
That's the thing is boxing. Like, I watch a boxing match and I watch an MMA match. Yes, it's both fighting, but it's so different. And
the
it's
options
like,
are
well,
limited
Conor
in boxing.
McGregor is going to cross over and it's like taking Albert Pujols and putting him into cricket. Yeah, they're similar sports, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be dominant. Like,
right.
Cricket's confusing.
yeah,
All
put
right,
Mayweather into an
people.
octagon. Done.
Oh, he's done.
Although he said he did offer to fight in 8-ounce gloves. I didn't hear what the commission said.
Now, what were they fighting in? They're going to fight
ounce.
in 10 ounce? So what,
now
he
they're
wants
gonna
to give him a speed advantage?
I mean,
I think the difference, too, with transitioning and, say, McGregor wins, they try to promote this Mayweather going in the octagon. I mean, it's like the worst thing in the world because there are so many more options to win in a UFC fight than there is in boxing. Like, you either win by decision or knockout in a boxing match. You could choke somebody out, break their leg, knock them out. I mean, look at the Bones fight.
Well, that's why they're not fighting in an octagon, because right now everyone's debating who's going to win this boxing match. If it was the other way around, it'd be like, why are they allowing this retired boxer to go into an octagon with Conor McGregor? Like,
it'd
this
be
is
like CM Punk going in.
Right.
Did you watch the Jones fight? The John Jones fight that just fought? No?
It was a good fight.
It was a brutal fight. He fucking murdered him in the end.
DC
That's
didn't know
pretty
what
much
it
what I
was.
watch. I don't have cable, so I have UFC Fight Pass, so I watch UFC. That's pretty much it. On Tuesdays for the summer, Dana White has a contender series where all your lower tier guys are trying to get signed and get that contract, and they show it two ways. They show the normal announcers, Eve Edwards, and again, I think I've recorded this like 5 times already. That I forget the white guy's name, and I haven't gone back to look at it, but they show another cast at the same time with Uriah Faber and Snoop Dogg, and they drink gin and juice,
Snoop
and
Dogg's
he's
into everything.
Isn't he amazing?
blunt the whole time while commentating on the fight. It is the greatest way to watch a fight. If Joe Rogan ever retires, they should hire fucking Snoop.
Oh, for sure.
And two people that know what the fuck they're talking about, but just to have Snoop, because that would be great on every pay-per-view.
He's just sitting there smoking and drinking the whole time.
Oh, they drink gin and juice. And, I mean, Uriah knows what he's talking about. He's a former fighter, so like he breaks it down. But Snoop's learning. Like I assume he's training at least some
That's
sort
gotta
of
be so
jujitsu.
sweet for him. It's like,
Who, Snoop or Uriah?
yeah, if I had gone like through all the shit that like Snoop has done, and be like a gig where I can just watch MMA and just say shit and drink and smoke and deal.
Oh hell yeah.
Or baked edibles with
You wouldn't even
Martha
have to
Stewart.
pay me for it. I'm sure he's getting paid though.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
That's Snoopcast is amazing. It's actually one of my favorite things to watch right now. I've stopped by a couple times and we'll watch it.
I have to check that out.
Anything commentated by Snoop, like I wish sometimes people could just have their lives like narrated by Snoop. It'd be so amazing.
It'd almost be like the
That could be a
Samuel L.
service.
Jackson.
Right. The what?
What's that? Samuel L. Jackson when he was reading that book, Go the Fuck to Sleep.
Oh yeah,
You could have Snoop do stuff like that.
that's an amazing book. If you've never
Any plans to
actually heard
expand at all? When did you open? 2014.
June 2014.
That's crazy. You guys have only been open 3 years. You guys are big. Like I said, when I was downloading pictures,
It's hard for me to tell from the inside. Like,
I'm sure it is, but I can tell you as like an outside
by
person.
comparison to where I want this to go, like we're still tiny, like absolutely microscopic, but we'll get there.
Wow, it takes time. Like the fact, it's impressive. Like you guys are.
Oh yeah,
People
busy as hell all
appreciate
the
your
time.
beer. I mean,
we've exceeded all of our goals. We're beyond where we thought we'd be. Like we're very fortunate to have the passionate, loyal customer base. I think that's where it comes from. And we talked about earlier, just focusing on the local regular customers and making sure that they're having the best drinking experience ever, because that's what accelerates word of mouth, which is the best type of marketing because it's free. And we don't really have a marketing budget. We don't buy ads or billboards or anything like that. We really can't. It's all social media and word of mouth, which that's all social media is a way of accelerating word of mouth.
Which is, I mean, right now is the way to go. That's who people are advertising with.
We're in the digital
I feel
age,
bad
man.
when the print ad sales people call me and ask me, like, you want to spend $1,600 for a half-page ad in our weekend edition of this? And it's like, I don't even know, like, no, I don't even know, how do I even measure the ROI of that? Social media is so precise now that I can see how much money I'm spending per person to have them view my content. And it's like, well, we distribute 20,000 copies of our paper, and it's like, that doesn't mean, okay, how many of those 20,000 flip to the page that has my ad on it? How many of that number actually reads it? How many of that number actually digests it? And how many of that number actually come in and buy something from me? Like, you can't just say 20,000 people, $1,600. Well, $1,600 is like someone's payroll for the month. So it's like, or close to it.
So as somebody that's new to social media, I mean, interrupt you, but I have a question. I don't want to forget it.
No, go for it.
So your Facebook page, it's a business page.
Facebook, yeah.
So the one I have for this is a business one. You get those messages. Boost your page for X amount of people.
That's the only advertising we do.
You pay for that?
Oh yeah. Okay. So 2 years ago, Facebook actually had a small business team that traveled around the country and tried to put on these big forums like chambers of commerce and stuff to educate small business owners about how to use Facebook to market their business because it's more efficient. And we were a business that had been using it for about a year. And they actually reached out to us and interviewed us, and I got to sit on the panel for it. And the way I equate it is, if you think of buying a TV ad or print advertising or a radio ad, that's like a shotgun blast to the market. You might hit some shit, you might not. It's really just, hope that this paper or radio station's audience shares the same shit that I do. With Facebook, think about all the things that you put onto your Facebook page. You like different groups, you like different causes, different products, you live in different places. When you're on your mobile phone, you're traveling through different places. I can pinpoint people that live within a 10-20 mile radius of Merrimack, who live or work around here, who are in different income brackets, different demographics. People put their, religious beliefs. They put their, if they're single, if they're in a relationship, if they're married, if they own a home, if they, and you can start to pinpoint all those little things. Oh, and by the way, when you're browsing Facebook and then browsing the internet, Facebook is also tracking that too.
Yeah, you see it.
They're tracking it anonymously, but they're tracking general numbers.
Right.
So there's all these algorithms going on. Like, the internet is changing everything. So you can spend, like, I don't spend more than $10 a day tops. We're spending on average probably $3 to $5 a day on advertising. So a couple $100 a month tops. But the other insight you can go into is looking at the metrics and the insights on the back end and being able to see who is your customer. You've been doing this for 3 years now. Who are the people that are actually gravitating to this and are regulars and are actively sharing and interacting with your page? And you start to learn about your customer base. You end up finding out, if you're doing it right, that it's people just like you.
No, but it actually works. Like paying for the boost this advertisement for,
because you can
$3.
pinpoint. So when you design an ad, and you say something like, I want to spend $5 over the next 24 hours to boost this post. I made a post. Here's my podcast. Here's my beer. Here's my event. I'm going to put $5 behind it. I want to target, for me, I'm very locally focused. My product has to be locally focused. It's more expensive if you don't want to push the boundaries. The deeper you can get in your market with my product, the better it is for you. So if we're releasing a new beer and I put $5 behind it, I can say, show it to people within a 20-mile radius of Merrimack, whether or not they live there or if they're on their mobile device and passing through. And I can say something like, people who like pages associated with beer. So I'm not wasting money putting my ad in front of wine and liquor drinkers. So if someone likes Anheuser-Busch or likes, and I can specify it further, people who like craft beer, so people who like pages like Lagunitas and Stone, and if they're driving up the DW highway and they look on their Facebook and see, oh, Able Ebenezer, there's a small brewery here having a cookout on a Friday. Like that's the type of stuff you can pinpoint. You can pinpoint people that like whatever. Like I've played around with a lot of stuff. Like I just start putting in things that I like. History and the military, veterans. Like on Veterans Day, if we put up something and write something, I'll target people who support veterans groups or associated with the Army, the Navy, the Marines on Facebook. I've run ads where I put like people who like Katy Perry, like because I love Katy Perry.
Who doesn't?
So that's the thing, and that's really what business is and what marketing is you're trying to find people like you who believe in the things that you believe in, who enjoy the things that you enjoy. I mean, there's only 30-something seats in our bar. If someone comes in and they love something other, like on a Sunday, and we're just watching football and talking football, this person hates football, maybe this isn't the place for you to hang out. Right. It's not a bad thing. It just means like I don't want you to think that I'm shitty because I didn't cater to you. Like I also don't want you to feel like you have to come up here. It's like this is just what we are, and it doesn't take a lot when you're a small business to be successful. Which is why I say like we're so small. It's just we found enough people that are just like us to enjoy the things that we do, like chilling and drinking beer.
For that 20,000 that you would see your advertisement in a paper or magazine or whatever it is, the fraction, like you said, that actually come in and buy something, as opposed to
I mean, you still
50,000 people that like you on Facebook
measure
already.
It perfectly, unless you have like a track record of. I mean, you could probably compare if you had a track record prior to social media advertising, but it was so easy to just like, let me try this for $5.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
The metrics alone are worth that. Because just being able to see, like, because we've learned what ads and posts, like, we don't post anything anymore that doesn't have an image or a video to it, because the metrics say that if it's just a post, people scroll right by it. Yeah, this is how many people saw your ad. This is how many people actually clicked on it, commented, liked. And then based on the audience that you define, people who like beer, people who live here, people who like this, people who are associated with this, it'll give you rankings based on, all right, this is how much you spent, this is how many people viewed it, based on what you spent, this is how much it cost you to have somebody actually interact with it. Here's the score based on your audience, because we only showed it to people who associated with this audience that you defined. It's almost like, so radio, newspaper, it's like a shotgun blast out into the market. Social media advertising is like a sniper rifle. You can pick and choose the people you want to show your message to, and then it tells you which targets you hit. And you'd be like, all right, well, I didn't hit that target. Maybe that's not my customer. Dial the audience back. Let's rebuild it. This is why I tried Katy Perry once. I wanted to see what the hit rate would be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's...
No, I mean, but I'm fascinated because when I post stuff to the page, like, I get those... boost is for $3, and I don't know, maybe it's the cynical person, I'm like, fuck you, you're just out to get money.
And that's still the general.
I did it once.
But talking to somebody that has a business that actually uses it more than
I know
somebody that doesn't.
Most of the small business owners that I've talked to, like even at that forum a couple of years ago, there was a lot of skepticism, and I completely understand it. For me, I dived into social media, like advertising and trying to figure it out really more out of necessity, because I couldn't afford the newspapers and the radio. I mean, if you have money for days,
$1,600 is a lot.
But yeah, but a lot of bigger businesses will shill that money every week, because on long enough of a timeline, it actually does produce an ROI. So if I spend $4,000 a month on advertising through major media outlets, no, in 1 month I'm not going to see a return. Over the course, if I do that every month for a year, I'll definitely see a return.
Right.
And that's the game that small businesses can't play. So if you think of it in battle terms, it's redefining the battlefield. If your opponent has so many assets that can play the game, at such a higher level, then you have to change the game. And I think social media has given small businesses a tool to change the game. You can spend $5 a day and reach 800 people. 800 people? If I sold 800 pints in a day, that's a really, really good day.
Yeah.
So 800 people is the world to me if they live 10 miles from the brewery.
Facebook is culture. So I mean, it is where everybody goes to, for the most part. I mean, there are people who are still like not on the Facebook thing, but like what you were saying, approximately 20,000.
There's so many
people.
more outlets. Like we're killing it on Facebook.
Twitter.
I think Facebook is ahead of all the other social media outlets when it comes to advertising. But you're starting to see more and more. Snapchat, you can now advertise your place. No, because
Twitter,
we're not a
Snapchat?
Snapchat venue. Like if you're
an Instagram venue, maybe.
if you're Gillette Stadium, you're a great Snapchat venue. Because I can just sit on my couch and pretend that I'm at Gillette Stadium, like on the sidelines and shit.
Yeah.
But Waze is now Waze. They're starting to, like, businesses can get their business listed on Waze. So if someone's driving and it'd be like, "Bing, hey, Able Ebenezer is right." Like you bypassed traffic on the DW, so now you're driving up. Or sorry, you bypassing traffic on the Everett, so now you're driving up the DW. A bunch of your friends are up at Able Ebenezer right now trying to wait out the traffic. So Waze is starting to get into it. You can obviously do Twitter advertising, Instagram, which is now completely interchangeable with Facebook. You can just check a box, and because Facebook owns Instagram,
and it's basically just a picture of you holding a product is what people like use for advertising. They spend small dollars to take people who have high Instagram followers. They give them, like I said, small dollars to take 10 pictures with their product in it, and
yeah, I ain't paying for that shit.
Right. But what I'm saying is that's how people are using social media for advertising.
People are starting to build personal brands where if they endorse a product, brands. I mean, it's like the Oprah effect. Like Oprah endorses something. Well, now
it's started on that.
But she has an audience, and that's really what it is.
Yes, but
is now that Instagram and social media is making it easier for people to have audiences, and then they're leveraging that audience into money. I, as a small business owner, am using Facebook's audiences to leverage my business. It's it's a whole new world. It's still developing. It's still it's ever changing. I try to keep up on it as much as I can, because for all I know, 3 years from now, like, the whole landscape changes again, and I don't want to be the old. Everything's changing so quickly. Because 10, 15 years ago, if you weren't on TV or buying radio or print ads, you were in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
What happens like 3 years from now when Facebook is considered the Stone Age?
Right. Everything's virtual reality. I just mean, like, out of a magazine, 20,000 people that may see it, okay, and then you get your amount. But on Facebook, you could have 30, 40, 50,000 followers, and that's people that have already probably tried your product, and while they're following you. So you're targeting as opposed to, and then on top of that, they have the business, like, thing, which
that's
is
a
awesome.
metric that we check pretty often is, we're approaching 11,000 followers or likes or whatever on Facebook, which puts us up there. Like, we're the third largest brewery in New Hampshire in terms of following, behind Smutty Nose.
You guys just won an award?
We won
2017, though. There was
we won 15, 16, and 17 best brewery in New Hampshire. Voted.
It was Editor's Choice this year, right?
This year, the Editor's Choice New Hampshire magazine also gave us best IPAs.
There you go. Nice.
Well deserved.
So
I'd say.
That's all icing on the cake. It's great. I love it when.
I'm just glad to know it works, because when I started the page, like, I get those posts that $3, $5, and I'm like, fuck you. No.
Well, it goes.
Stop asking for
I love the metrics, because everything about business is buried in the numbers, and looking at the numbers and figuring out what are these numbers telling me about what everything we're doing every day, all the actions, are they actually adding up to something that makes sense? And I think being relentless about the numbers all the way down to the $5 you're spending a day on social media marketing, but the data you get on the flip side is so. It's so valuable as a business owner to know who your customer is, where they are, and like you brought up demographics. We have almost 11,000 followers. Over 90% of them live within 25 miles of the Merrimack Brewery. Right. So that's like, it's not just 11,000 generic followers from all over the country who are craft beer connoisseurs. That's like scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Like we're unheard of. In a lot of, it's starting to happen. We're starting to pop up on beer forums now that we have cans out, but most of we've been basically unheard of across the country as a craft beer brand because we've only been marketing locally. But what that's generated is the third largest following on social media for a brewery in New Hampshire, and over 80-90% of that following lives within 25 miles of your brewery. So now it's Mike put it really well to me up front. He was like, we're proving the concept that people like the beer. Once we've proven that, it's getting it in front of as many people as possible. And those are the challenges that we deal with every day, is how do we exceed our capacity? How do we expand? We're tapped out right now at 900 gallons a week. And how do we do it in a way where we're not spending boatloads of money so we can keep paying everybody really well? It's always a balance. But the challenge, the big challenge for the first half of the year was getting the canning line up and running. Big challenge for the second half of the year and probably the first half of 2018 is how do I exceed and grow that 900 gallons a week? How do we run the canning line more often? How do we...
Where is your canning line? You go
right
somewhere?
In the facility.
It is?
Oh, yeah.
At your where?
Yeah,
you have a new facility?
No. Right in our facility.
Oh, right at your facility.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said a new facility.
That was a cool video, too.
Everything in-house.
Yeah, that's awesome. The whole thing is just a great experience. Like, I walked into that place expecting... Because I drove by it the first time I was supposed to meet him over there. I drove by it 3 times. I circled the whole place, and then... Because it was still cold out the first time I went. Yep. It was back in, like, late March, I think. Or April. And I drove by it 3 times, and finally I saw his car, and the place was closed. The doors were closed down, and I walked in, and I just didn't know what to expect. And it's
that's when it really
cool,
feels like a warehouse. Yeah, it's
such a different feel from Starks now, but Millie's as being a brew. Their beer sucked. Millie's was horrible.
It was a lot.
But from going to like that bar atmosphere to your atmosphere, it's chilled. Like it's such.
I do miss Tuesday night funk night at Millie's. That was like my favorite night to go.
I performed there back in the
a few times. We don't want to talk about that. That's another rabbit hole we'll stay out of.
Back in the day, in another life, I was a dope rapper, as you call them.
Is that what we're gonna exit to on this?
No.
So, do you want to go get that beer so we can try that? And
absolutely.
We'll wrap this up.
Yeah, that's beer.
No, actually, I was looking how you pour it because I spill that shit all the fucking time.
You're actually supposed to pour it hard and fast down the center of the glass.
There you go.
That's the way the brewmaster at Anheuser-Busch taught me to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
So what you folks heard him open up is some Emma Wood that you can find down at Able's, at least for the summer.
Yeah, until about the end of August.
Get in there and get it.
We're actually fighting to keep it on tap.
It's a nice color. It's an odd color.
It is a
lot of wheat, and that Belgian wheat yeast likes to hang in suspension. Plus, using wheat malt, it adds a lot of haziness to the beer as part of the protein that you get out of the.
Now, quick question: name and how you came across this one.
His name is Carl.
Not his name. The name of the beer.
I didn't name this beer actually. Mike did. And it's not a girl. It's named after a state beach in California. It's Ventura County. It's called Emma Wood State Beach. The reason why it has meaning is this is actually Mike, our head brewer's favorite beer. I don't know. It might be a little bit of a debate now between Victory and Emma, but Emma was the beer that he kind of made like when he created it. Brewing in his kitchen out in San Diego. It was like this is the beer that I love. I actually think I can build something out of this. And then when him and I started talking about opening a business and jotting ideas down into cocktail napkins, he ended up brewing a batch of this and he brought the bottles. So his family out in California, they do a big like a family reunion like camping trip, and they pick different state parks or state beaches out in California to go and meet up at, and he brought all these beers. No one in his family knew that he was brewing beer, and he was like, oh, by the way, I'm next month I'm moving to New Hampshire to open a brewery with my army buddy. Here's the beer that I make. And they all drank it around a bonfire, and they were like, well, what do you call this? And he's like, well, I haven't named it yet. And his whole family collectively decided to name it after the beach that they were on, so they named it Emma Wood. The funny part was when he came up and, again, he was brewing kitchen top, I'm brewing all grain, so I had to order all the ingredients for the beers that he had already kind of designed and wanted to tweak at all grain scale. And when he told me this one was called Emma Wood and the name was non-negotiable, I'm like, what, is this a girl that broke your heart? Like, are you sticking it to her? And
that's what
he told me the
thinking.
story, and I'm like, that's even better.
That is.
But for the longest time, I was like, Emma Wood? Like, who is this bitch?
I thought that too. I thought it was some sort of like personal
Love
heartbreak
loss.
or something that it came from, or like a
But then I realized
figure.
that's not Mike. That's something I would do. So it's me projecting onto others. I'm not vindictive like Mike is, or so other way around. Mike's not vindictive like the way I am. So yeah, Emma Wood is a state beach out in California. It's where Mike and his family decided to name this beer, which he had unnamed.
Trying to get that smell.
Summer wheat. You're getting a little bit of banana and clove from the Belgian wheat.
I thought it was crazy.
Nope, a little bit of banana. There's actually no banana in the beer.
Right.
It's actually an ester, like it's flavors and aromas that the yeast puts off as part of its metabolism of the sugars. This is the only beer that we produce that it uses a different yeast from. So the other 8 beers that we produce all use the same yeast, a Chico West Coast Chico Ale yeast. This is the only one that we use a different yeast with. It's a Belgian wheat yeast. And it produces those flavors of clove and banana, a little bit of sweetness, add a little bit of citrus peel to it at the end of the boil. Kind of brings out the flavors.
Really is.
It's great for the summer.
Yeah.
There's not a person I know.
Anywhere other than
Summer
New
beer,
England,
okay.
it's like an all year round beer, but in New England, it's like no one's going to drink this in the winter time.
Well, there's not a person that I know that has tried an Able beer that doesn't like at least one of them. So
That's true.
you guys are definitely doing a good job with that.
Oh, I've met a lot of them.
Have you?
They don't like any? Not a single beer?
Oh yeah, but you listen to the hate more than you listen to the love. You know,
Yeah,
it's-
I don't know. Personally or just internet
I don't
comments?
give a shit about what they say or what they think.
That's
It's
what
like,
I'm-
go open your own brewery. Like,
Right.
see how well you do.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Especially in this area. You guys are blowing up right now.
All right.
We're very fortunate.
I gotta wrap this up, sir. It's been awesome, dude.
It's been awesome. Cheers to you
I
guys.
appreciate you for coming out.
Congrats to you
I'm glad
guys.
that I know you. I'm glad that my life has taken the path that it has. That our camping trip last year, I can't wait for this year.
Fuck yeah, man. It's going to be awesome.
It was interesting.
Oh, you're doing your camping trip again?
Yeah, we're going to
that's
try
a whole nother
to... We're
show.
trying to figure out how we can all die at Squam Lake. Last year, we only got one of us.
Yeah.
This year, we're going to try to get at least 3 of us.
Poor kid.
Hashtag goals.
Sorry,
Well,
Alex.
Thanks again for coming in. It's definitely been a pleasure and interesting as hell. So
Fuck yeah.
thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. And there it is, man. There it is. Just like that. I hope you guys learned as much as we learned. It was an awesome time. Awesome time. Like, we really can't wait to do it again. That being said, next week, Billy and I are going to be doing a little game testing with our beer testing. What's up? And we got a special little drunk episode coming up where back in the day growing up, friends and I used to watch that Mystery Science Theater 3000. So in homage to that, we will be watching not a science movie, but 80s action. And nothing like Cobra Says Action. Good old Sly Stallone. Hope you guys had a great time. Like I said, check out offcolordiscussions.blueberry.net. Check us out on Facebook, OCD, Off Color Discussions. Find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever you're going to get it, man. But check out the website. Tell your friends, spread the word. Let's make this thing big.